how do I take this paragraph and turn it into some kind of equation or expression and solve it? And that's where students always struggle more than anything else. Solving is usually just a frustration factor because I added when I should have subtracted, or I just added incorrectly. So let's go ahead now and look at some of these out of 2-5. And we're going to begin with question 4. Okay. Now, whenever we come up to one of these, what do? We read it through once. So I always like to read it through before I do anything. So I'm going to read it through, and then I'm going to pick it apart and see what I've got. So question 4 says the sum of 2 consecutive integers is minus 276. We want to find the larger integer. So first thing, I need to see what I've got. And what am I working with? Okay? So they are not even and they're not odd, are they? So what is the gap going to be? 1. So I need 2 of them. So I said my first one is x. My second one is going to be x plus 1. Is everyone okay with that so far? Right? 2 consecutive integers. That's that first part of it. Now, what do we know about these consecutive integers? They sum to what? Minus 271. Okay? So what does that mean? They sum to minus 271. Well, that means the first number plus the second number is going to give you a minus what? Minus 271. Is everyone okay with that? Now, what do we do from here? We plug in what they are. And we said the first number, well, that one was x. The second number, well, what was that one? X plus 1, and that equals now a minus 271. So there's my equation. Do you think we can finish it and answer the question from here? What would we do? We would solve it, and then we would get both the numbers, right? So the first one is going to be x. So whatever you find it to be will be x. What about the next one? We add 1 to it, and that's my next number. Yeah, we can go ahead and finish it just to make sure. So adding those together, that's 2x plus 1 equals a minus 271. Okay, we'll move that minus 1 over, and that gives you then a 2x equals now minus 272. We'll divide by our 2, and now we have x equaling, we got 272, divide that by 2, and that gives you a minus 136. Is everyone okay with that? Now, that is not my answer though, is it? Okay, we need to get both of them, and we need the bigger number. So that means my first number was x, so that's a minus 136. And my second number is minus 136 plus 1, and that is then a minus 130 what? 35. Right? Be careful with your signs there. Which one do we want? We want the larger number. So in this case, it's going to be what? The minus 135. Are we okay with how I did that and how I answered that question? Now, if you put both of them on the page, I'd be okay with that. If you just put both of them down, that's fine. If you just put the larger one down, that's fine too. But don't just put the minus 136. Either put them both down or just put down the larger one. Question 5. Same type of concept here. So for question 5, we first read it, take a moment to digest it, and then try to come up with our equation, then eventually solve it. So question 5, this one is a little bit more difficult. If the first and the third of 3 consecutive odd integers are added, the result is 69 less than 5 times the second integer. Find the smaller integer. Now, it seems like there's a lot here, but what we first need to look at is what are we starting with? Okay, what do we have? We have integers, right? What type are they? Odd. And how many of them do we need? We need 3 of them, don't we? If we read it, it says the first and the third of 3 consecutive odd integers. So that's where I begin. So when I see a question like this, the first thing I do is say, where do I begin? I know it's a consecutive integer question, so we start with that. So how many do we have? 3. What are they? Odd. So first number, second number, and our third number. Okay. So my first number is always x. What about the second one? Okay, these are odd, so that means my gap is what? My gap is 2. So that means the next one is going to be x plus 2, and the last one is going to be x plus 4. Is everyone okay with how I got to that point? So, break it down into more manageable parts. When you read a question like this, it seems like there is a lot going on, but we have to break it down into small individual parts. So the first thing I said was, how many integers do we have? 3. What are they? Odd consecutive integers. So I labeled them out. Now it says, if we read it again, if the first and the third of 3 consecutive odd integers are added. So let's break that up first. First and the third are added together. So that's 1 plus 3. Okay? Is everyone okay with how I got that little part out of there? Now we look at after the comma. The result is, okay, result is, that means we put our equal sign. 69 less, so that means the 69 is going to be taken away. Is everyone okay with that, right? Less than 69. So I'm just going to put the 69 here, and I'm going to put the negative with it. And what is it being taken away from? Okay, it says, yep, 5 times the second integer. So that's 5 times the second number. Is it making sense now, kind of how I got to this step? How I built this expression, equation. Now we can fill it in, so let's go ahead and do that. The first number is x. The third number is x plus 4. On the other side, we have a 5. We're going to bring down the second number, which is x plus 2, and that's going to then be minus 69. Can you finish that one from here? Right now it's just using your algebra skills, distributing through that 5, combining like terms. You're going to solve it, and you're going to get the 3 integers. And we want the third one, so once you find it, just get all 3 of them. Either write all 3 of them down, or just make sure I at least have the third integer. Question 7. What do we have here on question 7? Well, question 7 says, and this is 2-5, by the way. Question 7 says, 2 pages that face each other in a book have 449 as the sum of their pages. What is the number of the page that comes first? Okay, so if I have pages in a textbook, that's like this, right? What are they? Back-to-back numbers, okay? So these would be consecutive integers, right? They face each other. So 2 pages that face each other. That tells me now I have 2 consecutive integers. So the first number is x. The second number is x plus 1, right? Because these are consecutive integers. They're pages in a textbook. So 2 pages that face each other. We took care of that. Have 449 as the sum of their pages. So that means they're going to add together to give you 449. Right? And now we can build our equation. So the first one is x, so that gets filled in. The second one is x plus 1. And what does it now equal? 449. And I think you can finish it from here, right? Because that's the easy part, solving it out. And that one might have been a little bit tricky because you had to think about pages in the textbook and what are they. If they're pages in a textbook, these are back-to-back numbers. So they're consecutive integers, and we needed 2 of them. We built our equation, and you can finish it from there, I believe.
I have a question.
Sure.
You said to finish it, so I did. Can our number be negative?
Well, let's look and see. Okay, if we have trouble solving 5, let's go ahead and take a moment to solve it. I think they should be positive, but we're going to double check these and make sure. Now, the first thing I would do, if I try to solve something like this, and this is a good review too, is I've got that 5 in front of the parentheses, and what do I do with it? Parentheses get done first, so we distribute that 5 through. And that leaves me with a 5x plus 10 minus 69. Now, what about the other side? Yep, we can combine those together, and that makes it 2x plus 4. Now we can work a little bit further. What about over here? Okay, so now we've got a 5x on the right, and a 10 minus 69, that makes it a minus 59. What's our next step going to be? And it should be positive at the end, so your answer should be positive. Let's see where that mistake is if we have one. Okay, what should I do next? Well, what I always like to do is move that x to the left. So let's go ahead and do that. Move that 5x over. And that leaves you then with a minus 3x plus 4 equals a minus 59, doesn't it? What's my next step? Subtract that 4. So that gives you now a minus 3x equals minus 63. Okay. And what's my very last step going to be? Divide by a negative 3. And remember, when you divide a negative by another negative, it becomes what? Positive. And 63 divided by 3, I believe, should be 21. But we can always check that. Yep, that's going to be a positive 21. Now, we need our 3 numbers, so what would they be? Be 21. Add 2 to that, so 23. Add 2 to that again, and that's 25, right? Now, which one did we want? Okay, if we're looking at 5, it says find the third integer, so that third integer would be then 25. And always take your time, and I'm guessing the mistake was probably with the sign with the negative 3 there. If I was guessing, there's probably a mistake with the sign. Okay, so that was question 7 we went through. Okay, question 9. Adjust the focus a little bit. Maybe I can get it a little bit clearer here. see if that helped any. That'll help a little bit here. Change it a little bit more. I think that's going to be about as clear as I can get it here. Yep, I think that's, yeah, it's a little bit clearer. Okay, so we are on question number 9. Okay, and what does this one have in it? This one's going to be working with angles. So let's read it and go from there. Yeah, let me adjust that a little bit more. I think I can get a little bit better. I think that's going to be about as good as I can possibly get it. So we're looking at question 9. All right, and question 9 says, find the measure of an angle whose supplement is 6 times the measure of its complement. So we need the supplement and we need the complement. So we're going to go ahead and write those definitions up first. And the supplement is 180 minus x. The complement is 90 minus x, right? Okay. Now, what are we doing on question 9? Find the measure of an angle. So what does that mean? That means we are solving for the variable x. So find the measure of an angle. That means solve for x, whose supplement is 6 times the measure of its complement. Okay, so the supplement. Now, is means equals. And what does it equal? 6 times the complement. Now we can fill in the pieces. So the supplement, well, that's 180 minus x. And the complement, we'll fill that in. And that's 90 minus x there. And I think you can finish it from there, right? But you see how I set that up? So I took a moment and I realized I need the definitions of the supplement and the complement. So I can either look them up or just remember them. So I found them. I wrote them down. I wrote it up in words. Supplement is 6 times the measure of its complement. And supplement equals 6 times the complement. I plugged in my values, and I think you can finish it from there. Question 10, very, very similar. Find the measure of an angle if its supplement measures 58 more than twice its complement. So, what do we need again? We need our supplement and we need our complement. They're already up here. So let's try to build up our equation. So the first thing says find the measure of an angle. That just means we are solving for x. That's all that means. That's it. If its supplement measures, okay, in this case measures means equals, so your supplement equals what does it equal? 58 degrees more than twice its complement. So 58 degrees more, that means we've got to add it in. And what are we going to add that into? Okay, twice its complement. So that's 2 times the complement. Now we can build our equation. So that's 180 minus x, and that equals 2 times 90 minus x plus that 58. And I think you can finish it from there. Does it make sense how I set that up, though? How the wording went together? Because that's the important part. Okay? And that 58 is added on because it says more. You could put the 58 in the front, of the 2 times the complement, it's the same thing. Because that 58, just make sure it's positive, and it's going to go with twice that complement there. We plugged our pieces in, right? Plugged in what the supplement was, what the complement was, and I think you can finish it on your own now. Question 15. The sum of twice a number and 17 less than the number is the same as the difference between a minus 37 and the number. What is the number? So let's think about what we have. Do we have integers at all? No. We need a number. So x is going to be that number. So let's break it up into small parts. The sum of twice a number and 17 less than the number. So let's think about what we have there. We have a sum. Okay, what are we looking to sum? Twice a number. Okay, so twice a number would be 2x. And that's going to separate the 2 pieces. So we're going to add to that. What are we going to add to that? 17 less than a number. So 17 less than the number, that's going to be x minus what? 17, right? 17 less than the number, so that's x minus 17. Is the same as, so that means we've got an equal sign here, is the same as the difference between. So that means we're going to subtract. So difference between a minus 37 and the number. Okay, so the difference between a minus 37 and the number would be a minus 37 and a what? Minus exit, right? Because we're going to subtract them. There's your difference. We're taking them away from each other.
Would it make a difference if it was to be the x first and then the 37?
As long as they were both negative. No. As long as they were both negative, because you're subtracting them, right? You have to watch your signs. See, these are both negative, so you could put a minus x and a minus 37 first. Let's go ahead and finish this so we can see how it works. Okay, just so we can work with these negatives. So I'm going to combine those together. That makes it a 3x minus 17. The other side, we've got a minus 37 and a minus x. Okay, so I'm going to add my x over. And that makes it 4x minus 17 equals a minus 37, right? We're almost finished. What would I do next? That 17 needs to be moved over, so let's add it. And what do I have left now? Yep, I've got a 4x. It is positive. And what does it equal? A minus 37 plus 17. These are different, so they subtract. 37 minus 17 is a 20. My sign is negative because it's larger. So that's your minus 20 there. How do we finish it? Divide by your 4. And so now your number is going to come out to be what? Negative 5. And the number can be negative. That's why I went ahead and worked this one out, because it is possible to have a negative number. Now, if it's a decimal or a fraction, you made a mistake. When they say a number, that means it's going to be a whole number, well, or an integer. So it's no fractions, no decimals. If this came out to be a decimal, you made a mistake somewhere. So you would know, I need to go back and see where that mistake is. Okay, that now finishes up 2-5. We did have some questions out of 2-6 and 2-7 to look at as well. So let's now try to set up the questions out of 2-6. And again, on a lot of these, I am not going to work them out completely. I am going to set them up, and we're going to talk about how we built the equation. So we're going to begin with question number 1. And this one is just knowing the difference between an area and a perimeter, 1 and 2. So it says decide whether you're going to use the area or the perimeter to solve these questions. Now, what is the perimeter? Perimeter is adding up all around, right? Okay, area. Area is, think about like carpet in a room, okay? How much carpet you use in the room. It's in square feet. So the easiest way to think about this is think about what my units are going to be. If it's square feet, it's an area. If it's not, if it's just feet, it's a perimeter. Measuring a garden for a border fence. Okay, if I'm going to build a fence for a garden, I don't say how many square feet I need, do I? When I talk about fencing, I say how many feet of fencing I need. It's feet. I'm going to add all the way up, all the sides, so that means that this one would be perimeter. Right? Because perimeter, you're adding up all the sides. Measuring a garden for tilling. That's going to be the area, right? Because that's like measuring the carpet for a room. If you think about measuring the carpet for a room, it's in square feet or square yards. Okay, so that means, same thing here, that's going to be an area because you're looking at how much space I have to fill in. So does it make sense now the difference between the area and the perimeter, hopefully? Question 4. What is the perimeter of a rectangle of 50 feet for the length and 11 feet for the width? Okay, well, we can look up the formula, or we can just think about what the perimeter is. What is the perimeter by basic definition? Adding up all the sides, right? We got a rectangle. What's our rectangle look like? It looks like 50 by 11. So if I add up all the sides, because that's your definition of the perimeter. Perimeter is always the same. It's always the sum of all the sides. Doesn't matter what figure it is. It can be a rectangle. It can be a triangle. It can be a pentagon. Whatever it is, you're going to add up all the sides. So in this case, what do they add up to give you? Okay, you got 50, another 50, 11, and 11. So that's 100 plus 22, which then comes out to be 122. And what is it going to be measured in? In this case, feet, because everything else is measured in feet. Does it make sense how I got that one set up though? And you could look up the formula in the back cover of your textbook. But for perimeter, you really don't need to, because what is the definition of the perimeter? Sum all the sides. You can look it up, or you can just remember, that one's easy. Add up all the sides. Okay, question 7. We talked a little bit about these literal equations. And what are literal equations? Okay, by definition, literal equations are equations that have more than one variable. And when we look at these literal equations, I have to tell you what variable to solve for. So in this case, what variable are we solving for? We want to get the r, right? We're going to solve this for r. So what I usually do is I look at it and I find the r and I put a box around it. And my goal is to get that green box all by itself. So however we want to do it, we need to make sure that this green box is by itself on the equals bar, separated by the equal sign. So what doesn't belong with that green box now? The s doesn't. Okay. Now, how does the s go with the r? It's not multiplication, is it? What is it? Addition. So how do we move that s over? We use subtraction. Can the S go with the A and the B? No, because they're unlike terms. They're different. So the only thing that I can do is I can write this as A plus B, and then we've got a minus S because it's separate. And what does it equal? R. Now, I always like to write my variable that I'm solving for on the left. So I'm just going to rewrite this, switch it around, is R equals A plus B minus S. So all I had to do was move that S over, and I always like to put the variable on the left-hand side. You can put it on either side. I usually like to put it on the left side because we read from left to right. And I think it's less confusing if you do it the exact same way every single time. Some of them are. The next one is a little bit more complicated. Question 8. I'm going to set this one up. We'll talk about it, and then you can finish it on your own. We talked about this a little bit last time. These angles, they form an X, don't they? Now, these are called vertical angles. And when you have vertical angles like these, that means they equal each other. The left equals the right, or the top equals the bottom if we had those. So in this case, these are going to be the same. So what is our equation? 2x plus 48 equals now 5x plus what? 9. What am I going to do? I am going to take this and I'm going to solve it for the variable x. Now, x is not my answer, is it? Because what do we have to do once we find the variable x? Plug it back into both sides, and these should be the same. So solve this out. Whatever value you find, could be a 10, 3, whatever it might be, you plug it into both sides, and they should be the same. So solve it out for x, plug it in, they should equal. If they don't equal, you made a mistake. Yep, I can do that. Okay, so how would I work this one out? Well, what's my goal? Okay, my goal is to get the x's on the left, the numbers on the right. I'm going to begin by moving the x over. So let's move that 5x over. And that leaves you then with 2 minus 5, that makes it a, minus 3x plus 48. That equals 9. Now, what's my next step going to be? Okay, subtract off that 48, and watch your signs now. 48, that is negative, a 9 that's positive, that means I'm going to subtract them, and 48 minus 9, that should be a 39, and it's a negative 39, isn't it? Right, because this one's negative. How do I finish it? Divide by your negative 3, and then what happens with a negative divided by a negative? Positive, and 39 divided by 3 is a what? Positive 13, isn't it? Now, what do I do with that 13? Plug it in. The sides had better be the same, so let's check. 2 times that 13 plus 48. 2 times that 13, that's a 26, plus your 48. Those go together, and that gives you then a 74 degrees. So there's that half. Now, what about the other side? What should it be? The same. If it's not the same, I made a mistake somewhere. So 5 times 13 plus 9, and 5 times 13, 65, plus 9, that makes it the same, 74 degrees. So, Did we do it correctly? Yes. How do I know? They're the same. Okay. Did we stop at x? No. You solved it and you plugged it back in. You would only get half credit if you left it as a 13. Have to take that and plug it back in.
So for our answer, we put 74.
Yes, the answers would be 74 and 74. You can just write it once if you want, since they're the same. Those are my answers. They should be the exact same value. And that's what I want for the answer on that one. Okay. 9 is next, so we just did 8. We'll look at 9. Sure, yep, we can add 5. Okay. Question 5. We'll go back and do that one real quick. Okay. What do we know about question 5? Right? These, remember our rules here. These are going to add up to give you 180. Right? Because remember, if it looks like this, that sums to 180. If it looks like this, that sums to 90 degrees. So ours looks like this. So now, what does it look like for my equation? Looks like x plus 3x equals 180. And I can finish it out as a quick one to finish. Add them together, you get 4x equals 180. Divide your answer by that 4, x by that 4. And that gives you now, what, 45, isn't it? Because 180 divided by 4 is 45. Is that my answer? Nope. Okay, that's where students make a mistake. It's not the complete answer, is it? This side comes out to be 45. What about the other one? Okay, there's one of them. What's the other one going to be? 3 times that 45, and that's what, 135? Yep, 135 degrees there. So, those are your answers. The circle parts are the answers. And we know we did it correctly because these sum to give you what? 180. So we know that we did it correctly. Is that making sense on that one now? Okay. Question 9, very similar. I'm not going to finish out question 9, but I am going to write up the equation. So question 9 is very, very similar to question 5. This is what we've got. And this is x plus 2. And this is 4x minus 142. So what do we know here? These are going to sum to 180 degrees, right? So what does our equation look like? Looks like x plus 2 plus 4x minus 142. And what does that equal? 180. And I think you could finish it from there. Okay. Combine like terms and solve. Very, very similar to question 5. A couple more to look at, and then we'll take a short break. Then we'll come back. We'll do a few questions out of 2-7 and finish up that section. So let's look at 12. We got 3 more. Question 12. A pie-shaped triangular lot, or lakefront lot, has a perimeter 1,700 feet. One side is 100 feet longer than the shortest side, while the third side is 400 feet longer than the shortest side. Find the lengths of all 3 sides. So, first off, when I read this, a pie-shaped, it says triangular-shaped lakefront lot. So that means I've got a triangle. So now I have a triangle. And this triangle has 3 sides. So I know that. So the triangle has 3 sides. And we know it has a perimeter of 1,700 feet. So when I talk about a triangle, we're going to assume they're all different sides, different lengths on the sides. So I know the perimeter is that 1,700. So that means if I look at my triangle, I've got my 3 sides. I've got a short side, middle side, and the longest side. They're all different. And we know that the perimeter equals that 1,700, and I know that is the short side plus the middle plus the longest. And that gives my 1,700. So is everyone okay with that so far? So what did I do? I read the question, and I said, it's a triangle. 3 sides. They're all going to be different. If it would have said equilateral, they would all be the same. But this is not equilateral, so we're going to assume they're all different. We have a perimeter that is 1,700. So what is the definition of a perimeter? Sum of all the sides. Okay? So we add them all up and we get the 1,700. Now we need to figure out how we can apply the variable x. So now it says one side is 100 feet longer than the short side, while the third side is 400 feet longer than the short side. So we're going to call the middle one, that's going to be 100 feet longer than the short side. So the middle one is going to be the short side plus 100. And it says the third one is 400 feet longer than the short side. So it's going to be the short side plus 400. Which one do we not know anything about? Okay, and the one we know nothing about, that gets the variable x. Is everyone okay with how I did that? So one's 100, one's 400 more. So the middle one's going to be the 100. The longest one's going to be the 400. The short side, I don't know what it is, so that gets the variable x. Now, what does it look like with the variables? The short side is x, so now the middle would be what? Short plus 100, so that's x plus 100. And the longest side is going to be x plus what? The 400, right? Is everyone okay with how I broke it down and see where I got from here? So first thing I did was I read it, and I said, this is a triangle, right? So that tells me there's 3 sides. It doesn't say they're the same, so I'm going to assume they're all different. We've got a perimeter of 1,700, and what is the perimeter? Adding up all the sides. So that means those 3 sides add together to give you the 1,700. Now we look at how they go together, how they relate to each other. It says one side is 100 feet more, so that's than the short side, so the short plus 100. The longest one is 400 more, that's your third side, and that's the short plus 400. We then said the short side is x because that's the unknown. Rewrote it, and now I can finish it. So now we know when we go back to our perimeter, it's adding up all 3 sides. We know the short side is x, the middle side is x plus 100, and the longest side is x plus 400. And what is that going to equal? 1,700. And we're going to go ahead and finish it from there. Is everyone okay with how I set that up now? I think a lot of times what happens is students get intimidated. And you see how I work these out. I read it. without doing anything. I just read it, and I take a moment to digest that. And then I go back and I look at each little piece, and I stop. And I say it's a triangle, 3 sides, perimeter, okay? That's adding up the 3 sides. And then I look at how they go together. I then build my equation, and then I solve. So you should be able to finish 12 from there. (14) On question 14 and 15, what you need to do is plug in the values that they give you. So they give you a formula, and this is the formula for simple interest. And they give you the values they want you to plug in. And we need to solve for the missing value. So whichever one is missing is what we're going to have to find. So this is what we've got. We've got different pieces. We're going to plug in our values, and we're going to see which one is missing. Okay, the I, that's 33.6, so that goes there. The P, well, that's 140, so that goes there. R is 0.06, so that goes there. Which piece do we not know? They didn't give us a value for the T, did they? So that's going to go there. How do we finish this? Well, we need to find our T. So I'm going to take that 140, multiply it by that 0.06, or that 6%, and that gives you 8.4. And what do we now do? Watch out for your decimals. That's 33.6 there. How do we finish it? Divide by our 8.4. And 33.6, we're going to divide that by the 8.4. That comes out to be 4, doesn't it? And now we're going to rewrite this with the variable on the left. So now we know that T must equal what? 4. Question 15. I'm going to fill in the numbers. You're going to finish it from there. So the C is the 12.56. And pi, they want you to not use the key on the calculator. They want you to use pi with the value of 3.14. So don't use the key on the calculator. Use the value that they give you. So plug it in. So 12.56 equals 2 times pi, which is 3.14. Okay, we're plugging our values in. And which one do we not know? R. Can you finish it from there? You multiply those together, divide, and that's going to give you your answer. Okay, let's take a short break, and let's meet back at 9:10. And then we'll finish up the questions out of 2-7 and finish it after that.